Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto has harem with Hinata and Tsunade, Shizune Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto accidentally opened an underground vault when he pressed his cut palm on a stone with a swirl. The young boy jumped when a doorway opened in front of him. Deciding that it would be better shelter than what he was already getting, he ventured into the vault. He came upon another swirl and touched his palm on the door again and opened a room that was full of scroll like a library. Out of curiosity, he approaches the first rack of scrolls, unintentionally triggering something else. Suddenly a voice appeared out of nowhere and it told him that he was the last of the Uzumaki and this was the legacy of the Uzumaki clans. With tears in his eyes and happy he found remnants of family even if they are gone, he pulls out the leftmost scroll on the lowest shelf and begins to read. The Sandaime had taught him to at least read because the matron of the orphanage told him he wasn't allowed to learn. Clearing his mind, he opened the scroll, he began to read. Surprisingly, the material is easy to understand and he is drawn in by the contents. An hour later, he has finished around 10 of the 30 scrolls on the lowest shelf of the scroll rack. So chakra is what is molded and used in jutsu. This is used in the ink that makes Fuiunjutsu active. He found out that the bunker, so to speak, was self-sufficient. A bed and an adjacent full bathroom were connected to the main room while a room that was an underground garden that had seals all around for transferring sunlight for the plants to grow to bringing water to the plants. He spent an hour eating a variety of fruits and vegetables in the garden before heading back the library, main room to study some more with renewed vigor. He had found a scroll that explained the main hand seals that were used in jutsu and he found a pair of gloves sealed in the scroll. After putting them on, the scroll explained that the gloves had seals on them that would track his progress. He slowly made each seal in the scroll and memorized them. Apparently the gloves would glow white after a successful cycle of the hand seals. Each time Naruto had a limited time to do it before they reset. When his hand seal speed was up to speed, the gloves would turn entirely white. Naruto spent an entire day working on the hand seals. A week later, he had successfully brought his hand seal speed up to the point where his hands moved through the seals at a speed that was inhuman. He had also found a jutsu called the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He had quickly mastered it since it only had one seal. Time skip. 6 months. Several months had passed and he had mastered several things. He had successfully mastered writing, drawing basic seals, and the Kage Bunshin. Apparently when a jutsu was mastered, no hand seals were required. He had gone from a dozen of clones to a small platoon of 500 to 600 clones. He had learned that the clones had given him information on their dispersal. He used that to his advance and read the 10 racks of racks. He had found several taijutsu had determined a combination of the styles into one would better benefit him. He had not mastered the new style he created but with the clones who worked on it every morning, he neared mastery of the style. He had created a routine that used his clones to learn various jutsu, his new taijutsu, several ninjutsu, and genjutsu. He had added several jutsu to his repertoire of various types. He had mastered several C-rank elemental jutsu from all 5 elements. His ability to use all 5 types of elements was probably due a family trait he had determined. His clones had sparred with him every morning and improved his reflexes and reaction times. He also had created a training exercise that trained his eyes to pick up the smallest movement. He had ventured to the surface and had practiced the training exercise in the forest that surrounded the ruins. He had avoided the attacks of various animals successfully. Naruto sighed happily as he went to bed and thought about his accomplishments. 4 years later, Naruto was now 8.5 years old but in the small time period had finished every scroll in the room. His Fuiunjutsu was flawless as was his taijutsu, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and kenjutsu. He had picked up kenjutsu when he found a scroll on the art. He had found a room of weapons which he sealed into a scroll. He had learned to use every weapon with the help of shadow clones, but he had chosen a pair of custom-made hand scythes. The shaft of the weapons measured a foot in length. The blades extended from the shaft to about 6 inches before curving sharply and going back to the shaft. The top of the shaft had a spear point. He had found that he could connect the weapons end to end and it turned into a 4-foot weapon. He spent his time mastering this weapon in its 2 modes. He decided to make a few companions using Fuiunjutsu. He had sent his clones out to find scrap metal which littered the ruins on the surface. He had used the scrap and a multitude of seals to create mechanical creatures that resembled a dragon, a scorpion, and a crab. These hulking machines could be ridden as they moved on their own with Naruto's assistance. They had their own chakra systems, a chakra absorption seal that siphoned chakra from jutsu used against it, repair seals, and reconstruction seals that helped itself put itself back together if it were obliterated. Naruto looked at the place he called home for almost 5 years before sealing at the scrolls, the weapon scroll, his creations, and his notes for several jutsu he had created or were working on into seals built into a belt he had engraved seals into. He slapped down a seal that would let him return once a similar seal was put down somewhere else. He dressed in a fresh pair of clothing which he had found years ago with several other outfits. He looked at the bunker again before headed towards Konoha. In Konoha, the Sandame sighed again. Today was the anniversary of the day Naruto was run out of Konoha. Since the people responsible were executed as an example, no one dared celebrate openly, in fear of being sent to Ibiki. He looked over more paperwork before glancing at a picture of the 4th Hokage. Minato, I'm sorry for failing you and Kushina, he said to no one. He stamped another paper before he decided it was time for a distraction. Damn you Jiraiya and your wonderful books, he whispered as he pulled out an orange book. At the gates, the gate guards, Kamizuki Izumo and Katetsu Hagane, sighed as they stood there again. I'm so bored, droned Hagane as his partner rolled his eyes. You say that every 2 minutes. You could take the Junin exams and be on missions that aren't boring, said Izumo. You know I'm too lazy to do that. Plus, gate guard is a job that requires no effort, said Hagane grinning. Izumo turned away, mumbling about lazy chunins. Hagane poked his partner and pointed to the horizon and both their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It was a young boy wearing an Uzu forehead protector with a red and black outfit that had the kanji for Seal Master on the torso. His belt looked like it held a multitude of riches. As the boy reached Izumo and Hagane, they saw he wore his head long. Some of his hair spilled over the hite and covered both of his eyes. This is Konoha, correct? Asked the boy not once looking up. Yes, said the stunned pair. Could you take me to see the Hokage? I haven't been here for a while so things may have changed. The 2 chunin nodded numbly and escorted the young boy to the Hokage tower where the Sandame sat reading his smut. Hokage-sama, a young boy with an Uzu hite is asking to see you, said the secretary. Let him in. The Sandame sat up at the mention of an Uzu headband and hid his smut. How can I help you? He asked when the young boy was seated in front of him. Gigi, I'm hurt. I remembered you and you forgot me. I'm so sad, said the boy as the Sandame's eyes widened at the affectionate name. Only one person called me that except my grandson. Naruto? He asked hopefully. Naruto Uzumaki, the prince of Uzushiogakure at your service, said Naruto grinning as he pushed the hair out of his eyes and looked at the stunned Hokage. Did you say the prince? Asked the Hokage. I am the last of the Uzumaki clan, am I not? I found an underground bunker there in which I lived in and mastered all of its secrets. Begin from the top, said Sarutobi. Naruto started the tale and told him of what had happened for the 4.5 years he had disappeared. The Hokage paled and called Ngai, Kakashi, Kurenai, and Yugao to his office. I need you 4 to test this boy's abilities in your specialized fields and give me a report of his skills, said the Sandame. The 4 looked at the boy and their eyes widened upon sight of the Uzu headband. Naruto Uzumaki, at your service, said Naruto. On a random training ground, Naruto, the Hokage and the four Junin, well Yugao is a Junin when not in Anbu uniform, stood, ready to begin. Yugao, Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy, you all will all test his skills one at a time, said the Hokage before Naruto held up his hand. I would like all of them to fight me as a team. Don't worry, I'll even the odds, said Naruto. The four Junin began to argue but stopped to gape in awe when Naruto unsealed three hulking metal mechanical beasts. These are my creations powered by seals and sentient beasts that act on their own until they are immobilized by seals or told to stop by me. Good enough? Asked Naruto. The four Junin nodded and got into their stances. Naruto unsealed his weapon of choice and attached them together at the ends before resting one end on the ground and motioned for the Junin to attack him. Guy charged in first, closely followed by the other Junin. Naruto quickly secured his bladed staff to his back and fought Guy. Kurenai tried to cast a genjutsu on Naruto to distract him but found herself in a multi-layer genjutsu to her horror. Guy began to unseal the gates as Naruto began to gain an edge. Guy sweated as he charged in but looked at Naruto in awe when he dispatched him with a mere palm strike to the chest while dodging the other attacks. I surrender. Naruto-kun's flames of youth are greater than mine, shouted Guy as he stood by the Hokage. Kurenai had freed herself and Kakashi closed the gap between himself and Naruto as he used a small jutsu to try and pull Naruto into the earth, but the dragon beast had blocked his path. The remaining three dodged the mechanical beasts while trying to get close. Naruto grinned as he announced the name of his jutsu before he blasted it toward Kakashi. The Cyclopean Junin's visible eye widened as he recognized the jutsu. Wind Dragon Jutsu, he whispered as he dodged the jutsu. He pulled up his Hite 8 that hit a Sharingan before engaging Naruto again. Raiden. Lightning Pulse, cried Kakashi trying to shock Naruto. Naruto grinned as he stood still as the jutsu him. The three remaining Junin looked in shock, awe, and a bit of terror as the jutsu collided with Naruto and disappeared. I am not a seal's master for nothing. I have created a seal that absorbs all types of elemental jutsu. Fuden. Earth-rending wind blades, said Naruto. A blast of wind erupted from Naruto that ripped up the earth as it plowed toward Kakashi, who tried to use an earth jutsu to absorb the attack in vain. To his displeasure, the wind jutsu destroyed his earth wall and Kakashi dodged panting. Hokage-sama, I concede. His ninjutsu is beyond my level, said Kakashi as he limped off the battlefield after he sprung his ankle from dodging the wind attack. Kurenai and Yugao tried to double-team Naruto, with Kurenai casting a genjutsu over him and Yugao attacking, but they were stunned to find the Naruto in front of them was a clone. Yugao's blade had pierced it and it erupted into smoke. Kage Bunshin, exclaimed the remaining Junin. Never leave your back unguarded, said a voice behind him. Kurenai found she was unable to move. She looked down and found a large seal on the ground beneath her that immobilized her. I concede. Naruto's genjutsu is fantastic. Yugao watched in fascination as Naruto pulled the double-ended scythe staff from his back and spun it in front of him. Your move, Junin-san, he said. Yugao fought to the best of her ability and Naruto was still a step ahead of her. She accidentally overextended a thrust and Naruto had snared her blade and pulled it out of her hands. I concede. I have been bested by a master, she said to the Hokage. The Junin and Hokage looked in awe at Naruto as he sealed all his creatures and weapon up. What level is he? Asked Sarutobi. He is beyond Genin level, Hokage-sama. He has chakra reserves that make yours look like a Genin's Hokage-sama. No offense. He casted a multi-layer genjutsu that is even hard for a Junin to perform, Hokage-sama. His kenjutsu is on the level of a master, Hokage-sama. So what level do you place yourself, Naruto-kun? Asked the Hokage. I don't know. I wear resistance seals that I haven't released for 4 years, said Naruto as he revealed the seal on his chest and limbs. Yugao and Kurenai blushed upon seeing his muscular body. I also have discovered the dead demon seal on my stomach and have made contact with the demon. A year ago, our chakra pools have merged also with other things. Naruto released a seal and the adults gaped at a 20-year-old man. The merger has also sped up my growth. I'm physically 22, Gigi-san, he said. I get Jiraiya to certify your Fuiunjutsu tomorrow, said the stunned Hokage. If I may, could I ask for the Junin rank? Asked Naruto. You're beyond Junin level. You're around high Anbu. Why not apply with them? Asked Yugao. I prefer to not have to wear a mask 24/7, Yugao-san. I may take that offer in a few years though, said Naruto. Why Junin though, Naruto-kun? Asked Sarutobi. I wish to take up a genin team and teach them. Anyways, doesn't every Hokage take a genin team? Asked Naruto as Sarutobi smiled. I see your dream to become Hokage has not diminished, the Hokage said. The next day, Naruto was presented with a Junin vest and a Konoha Hite 8. Naruto used the Uzu 1 as a belt and tied the Konoha 1 around his forehead. Naruto was given the mission to find and bring Jiraiya to Konoha to certify his Fuiunjutsu. Naruto was given a list of places of where he was usually at. Naruto scanned the list, shaking his head. Jiraiya of the Sannin. More like Arrow Sannin. I think I will call him that from here forth, haha, thought Naruto. He found Jiraiya in Hot Spring Country, spying on the fairer gender from a tree with a telescope while he quickly scribbled down notes and sketches for who knows what. Smirking, he crept up behind Jiraiya, who was too concentrated on peeping to notice the looming threat behind him. Hey Arrow Sannin, shouted Naruto, scaring Jiraiya off his branch and into the women's side of the bath. Naruto laughed as he heard the Toad Sannin plead for his life as women approached him with various pointy objects they produced from thin air. The sounds of metal meeting flesh, girly screams, and the general cry of, "Beat the pervert," was in the air. The Sannin was flung outside the fence and landed at Naruto's feet. He stood up as if the beating had never occurred and brushed off the dirt on his clothes before turning to face Naruto. Kid, what was that for? I had a good view and you had to spoil it, said Jiraiya whining. Naruto decided to play innocent and asked him what his name was. I am the great Gamma Sannin Jiraiya, said Jiraiya, hopping left and right on one foot. For a Sannin, you are the lamest person I've ever met, Arrow Sannin, he said flatly, causing Jiraiya to fall over. For your information, boy, I am the writer of the best book ever, said Jiraiya, showing Naruto the Ika Ika book in his pocket. Ah, Kakashi-san writes that smut you write. Let me tell you, Arrow Sannin, I consider that book to be trash. I could write something better, said Naruto. You are not even a genin yet, are you? Asked Jiraiya. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Naruto Uzumaki, Prince of Uzushiogakure and a level 10 seals master. I came to ask you to check my seal work and bring you back to Konoha, said Naruto. You a seals master? Kid, Naruto. There has not been a seals master since the destruction of Uzushiogakure. Jiraiya's eyes bulged upon seeing the Uzu Hite 8 tied around Naruto's waist. If you are so sure, care to check my seal work, Arrow Sannin? Asked Naruto. Stop calling me that. Sure, let's see your seal work, said Jiraiya. Naruto showed him the mechanical creatures he made. Jiraiya's eyes bulged upon seeing the seals involved. Naruto, where did you learn these seals? They have been lost for decades, said the Toad Sannin. I was kicked out of Konoha at 4 and found my way to the ruins of Uzu and learned Fuiunjutsu and a multitude of other things over 4.5 years, said Naruto, eyeing Jiraiya. Jiraiya turned to Naruto and nodded. You are definitely a seals master. Even the Yondaime wasn't this good, said Jiraiya. The fourth Hokage, he was a seals master. Yeah, he was my student after all, said Jiraiya, grinning. The two men headed to Konoha where Jiraiya certified Naruto's Fuiunjutsu skills in front of the Hokage. Naruto grinned and left to go eat somewhere. So Naruto has been through a shitload from the council? Asked Jiraiya solemnly. The Sandaime nodded. Naruto-kun has overcome it though. I'm glad. By the way, what rank is he? Asked Jiraiya casually. Officially or realistically? What do you mean by that? Pick one. Just give me both. The Sandaime grinned and readied the camera under his desk. Officially he's a Junin, but realistically, he could best you, your teammates, and me without breaking a sweat, said the Sandaime. Jiraiya's mouth dropped as Sarutobi took a picture and handed it to him. Here, for your photo collection, joked the Hokage. Jiraiya had searched around for Naruto and finally found him slurping down ramen at Ichiraku's ramen stand. The cook and his daughter stood watching the bowls pile up in shock. The old man had waterfall tears going down his face. Kami has answered my prayers. We will be rich from just one of his meals, thought Ichiraku Tsuki. Ayame spotted Jiraiya and bowed to him. Jiraiya-sama, what can we get you? She asked. A miso ramen please. Jiraiya sat down next to Naruto. Naruto, the Sandaime told me about your rank. Why didn't you become an Anbu? You are skilled enough to be one, asked Jiraiya as he muttered a quiet itadakimasu. My dream is to become the Hokage, plus I don't like the masks Anbu has to wear. It's too secretive for me, said Naruto, finishing his 40th bowl before he called it quits. He paid Tsuki and Ayame and was about to leave when Tsuki called out to him. Naruto, come back anytime. Naruto grinned and gave him a thumbs up. Don't worry Tsuki Ojii-san. I can't eat ramen all the time, but I will swing by to have a few bowls now and then, said Naruto. Jiraiya looked at Naruto as he disappeared from sight. Jiraiya-sama, do you know Naruto-san? Asked Ayame. Yeah, and he's more than meets the eye, said Jiraiya before he finished off his bowl. Naruto had wandered off into the forest of death after he had gotten bored of wandering around Konoha. Apparently the place was filled with freakishly large man-eating creatures. Naruto climbed a nearby tree and leaned against the trunk of the tree after he put down seals around the tree's base, if he fell. The sound of a kunai whistling through the air toward him woke him several hours after he fell asleep. Gaki, aren't you too young to be here? I admire your bravery, but it's forbidden for any shinobi lower than a chunin to be in this training ground, said a feminine voice. She jumped on the branch where the boy was and found to her surprise, he had vanished. I believe that was unnecessary. Isn't attacking a fellow Junin and a loyal Konoha shinobi a crime? Asked Naruto, appearing in Anko's face, hanging upside down from a branch above his resting place. I was having a good dream too. Alright, stop with the jokes. Who are you? Asked Anko. Isn't it impolite to ask for someone's name before telling them your own? He replied back. The name's Anko Mitarashi. So what's your name, Junin-san? Asked Anko in sarcastic tone. Naruto Uzumaki, 10th level seals master and fellow Junin at your service. Anko gasped at the name. The kid's promotion to Junin was sudden, and from the stories that Kurenai and Yugao told her from their spars with Naruto, his true strength was beyond that of a Junin's. Kurenai and Yugao told me about you. So what are you doing in here? Not many Junin would even come in the forest of death on a mere whim, said Anko. I wanted to take a nap and brush up on some training. That's amusing. Fall asleep before you could start. No, it was my training. To learn to distinguish enemies and the sounds they might make in an environment where the visibility is limited. The fact that I fell asleep just makes it more challenging. Interesting. How about a spar? Here or on the ground? Naruto's answer came in the form of a kunai launched the direction of his face. Naruto expertly dodged the kunai and summoned a few clones. Kage Bunshin without hand seals. That requires the mastery of the jutsu, thought a bewildered Anko. Naruto unsealed some seal paper he had on him and quickly made an immobilization seal as his clones distracted Anko. Hey boss, can you hurry up? This crazy woman tried to get her snakes to eat us, shouted a clone as it dodged a snake that Anko sent towards him. Finished. Seal, shouted Naruto as he switched with the nearest clone and applied the seal on her with a single fluid motion. Anko was having fun dispelling the clones. They were challenging to hit, but that made it more enjoyable. She was about to impale a clone where the sun don't shine when she found herself unable to move. The clone that was about to be impaled glared at her before dispelling with his fellow clones. I win, Anko-chan, he whispered into her ear. I was surprised you could keep up with my clones. Not even Kakashi and the other Junin I faced had enough stamina. Anko shook with rage as Naruto sat down in front of her and unsealed a box full of dango. Yummy. This stuff is good. I should eat it more often, said Naruto as he gauged Anko's reactions. He laughed before removing the kunai from her hand and unsealing her. She almost fell over, but Naruto quickly caught her and offered her some of her favorite treat. Anko greedily ate the dango given to her as Naruto asked about her. Naruto learned she was a special Junin, not a Junin yet. She worked in the T&I department for the Anbu. She liked dango and sweet bean soup. She was the student of the traitorous snake Sanin who left Konoha because he wasn't given the position of Hokage, and had marked Anko with a seal that hurt her body. Can I see the seal, Anko-chan? Asked Naruto gently. He knew she was touchy about the subject given her sensei was a traitor. Anko showed Naruto the seal and Naruto quickly sketched the seal. If I could remove it, would you let me? Asked Naruto softly. Anko perked up as she grabbed Naruto by the shoulders and shook him while asking if he could do that. So dizzy, said Naruto who had swirls in his eyes. Anko stopped shaking him and waited for him to snap out of the dizzy spell. Yeah, but I need time study the seal. Does it have any more forms? There's a second form, but it hurts to use. It spreads across my body in black tendrils that cover my body from head to toe. Naruto wrote the information down and with a quick goodbye, he left Anko alone. Maybe he could break the seal, thought Anko hopefully. Naruto headed home to the apartment he rented to study the seal. He dissected the seal into its various components and was working on breaking the seal but was ultimately interrupted by a knock on his door. A shinobi in Anbu uniform stood in his doorway. The Hokage asks for your presence, said the tiger-masked Anbu. Tell the Hokage I will be there shortly, Tora-san, he said. The Anbu nodded before disappearing. Naruto sighed as he locked his apartment door and headed to the Hokage tower. The Sandaime was present and asked him to follow him to the hospital. I have a hunch on your genealogy, but I need some proof. Could you give a small blood sample? Asked the Hokage. Naruto looked the man who was like his grandfather and nodded. He bit his thumb and asked for a small vial which he filled. The Sandaime smiled as Naruto waved goodbye and left. He could finally confirm Naruto's lineage, give him his inheritance and rub it into the council's face. He would enjoy Naruto and the council's reactions. A week later, Naruto had made a discovery on the seal and worked on finishing the counter seal to destroy the vile chakra source that kept it connected to Anko. Again, he was interrupted by the tiger-masked Anbu member. The Hokage has asked for your presence in the council chambers, said the Anbu. Naruto locked his apartment and was escorted to the chambers where Sarutobi stood in wait for Naruto. Naruto was told to go in and walked in and stood by the Sandaime. I have found the heir to the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, said Hiruzen. The council gasped while Naruto was hard to read. Old man, you knew of my lineage but chose to keep it from me, asked Naruto slowly, the anger in his voice clear. Your parents asked that it be so until you reached at least Chunin rank or the age of 16, said the Sandaime giving Naruto 2 scrolls. Naruto unsealed both scrolls with his blood, knowing to do so after learning about them in his studies. The first scroll contained letters from his parents. Dear Naruto, this is your dad, Minato Namikaze. I'm truly sorry for the burden I have put on you by sealing the Kyuubi into you as an infant. You have the right to be angry at me, but remember I love you no matter what. I will not be here to guide you, but I am always with you in your heart. I got to go now. Your father, Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime. Dear Naruto-kun, this is your mother, Kushina Uzumaki. I never wanted your life to be like this, but I write this as you are coming from my womb. Breathe, Kushina. I may not make it through, but know that I love you unconditionally and will always love you even if I am no longer present to hold and comfort my baby boy. Don't worry, I hit your father a few times for giving you this burden without giving you a choice. Your mother, Kushina Uzumaki, Princess of Uzushiogakure. So I was right about being the Prince of Uzu, whispered Naruto as tears streamed from his covered eyes. The council was shocked at the revelation. The shinobi side were either ashamed of their inaction or actions that caused Naruto to be kicked out of Konoha. Inoichi and Hiashi were the best friends of the Yondaime and they had taken an oath to protect his only son or daughter. They had failed miserably. The members of the civilian council had either been ashamed or were screaming about how the demon child couldn't be the son of the Yondaime. Their arguments ceased upon seeing the confirmation of his status. The other scroll holds the key to your home and jutsu scrolls from your parents Naruto. I'm sure they would be proud, said Sarutobi. Naruto hugged his grandfather, but the happy mode turned sour when the civilian council tried to marry him off to their daughters. You fools. The CRA can only be implemented by the heir or heiress. In addition, they have until their 21st birthday to marry a minimum of 7 women. I am not obligated to marry anyone's daughters. I am wary of this council and I will do it my way. Growled Naruto. You insolent brat. You may be the clan head of 2 clans but you answer to the council. Snarled a fat merchant. You stupid buffoon. I am a shinobi and as such I only answer to the Hokage. This is a dictatorship, not a democracy. Naruto replied back, shutting up said civilian council member. Naruto-san, said Homura and Kaharu, trying to use their silver tongues to persuade Naruto. You are young and so we recommend that you allow us to choose one wife for you to guide you. I am considered an adult as soon as this headband worn on my head. I will make my own decisions so stay out of my clan's business. Naruto had moved out of his apartment into his new home. He quickly set up his study and began to work on Anko's seal once again. Eureka! He exclaimed as he finished decrypting the seal's secrets. He set the seal aside and put a note on top of the paperwork to talk to Anko. He unsealed the folder of seals and jutsu he had been in the process of creating. He had seals from the basic repair seal that was created by him to repair his mechanical creatures from scrap up to his unfinished seal that would give the user a second chakra pool, which was created by siphoning off access chakra from the body. Naruto worked late into the night on various projects while he thought of the CRA that he was under. I don't have to worry about that for a while, said Naruto, dismissing the idea. The next morning Naruto went to find Anko and informed her of his discovery. The snake using Junin smothered him in a hug that almost suffocated him. She only let go when Kurenai, who was eating with her friend, pointed out Naruto was turning blue. Sorry Naruto-kun, she said, barely hiding a blush. Naruto-kun, is it now? Asked Kurenai as her friend glared at her. Meet me at the Namikaze estate in 2 hours. We'll take that seal off in no time, said Naruto, who miraculously recovered from his near-death experience. 2 hours later, Anko tapped her foot impatiently as she waited for Naruto to show. She jumped as the gates opened and Naruto came through them. You live here? Asked Anko incredulously. Yeah, I'm the Yondaime's child it turns out, he said as he motioned for her to follow. The gates closed behind her as she entered the mansion. A picture of a pregnant Kushina and Minato standing next to her adorned the stairwell. Anko hadn't realized until now that Naruto looked just like the Yondaime minus the whisker marks. Anko looked around in awe as she was led to a room that had a giant seal drawn on the floor. The seal on the floor prevents anyone to tamper with the unsealing process when it starts, explains Naruto. It's kind of like a barrier of sorts. Naruto asked Anko to undress from waist up as he applied the ink for the seal over her whole upper body. Seal! Shouted Naruto as he pressed his palm against the curse seal on Anko's neck. The seal he drew glowed blue as it fought the curse seal's black tendrils. The blue chakra won after half an hour's time. Anko gritted her teeth as the area where the seal was burned as if the seal was lit on fire. The seal gave off a sickly black glow before it faded from her neck. Naruto removed his chakra from the seal and watched it crumble. He helped a shaky Anko redress, with his eyes closed of course. Anko had left the Namikaze estate feeling like a new woman. Her only link to Orochimaru was finally gone and she was grateful. She would find a way to repay on Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Meanwhile, Mei Terumi was in the Sandame's office asking for some help in the bloodline wars against Yagura, who become a tyrant and started killing off bloodline users. Sandame called for Naruto, who appeared in his office dressed in Junin uniform. Naruto, this is an S-rank mission. You have the opportunity to refuse now if you choose, said Sarutobi. Mei-chan's country is turmoil due to injustice. I will do everything in my power to help. I accept this mission, Gigi-san, Naruto said. Naruto and Mei traveled towards Mist in silence. Naruto mentally ran over his inventory that was stored in seals on his belt while Mei took time to scrutinize the young Junin. The young looked barely 10 years old. How in the hell did he make Junin at such a pre-adolescent age? His attire spoke volumes of the boy. The item of clothing the youth wore that drew her eyes was his belt. The belt was made of durable cloth that had metal plates sewn on. On closer inspection, it was easy to see the work of Master Seal's master was engraved on the metal plates. Does my belt interest you? I never known anyone that was interested in such a seal-covered article. This is one of many few Iyunjutsu projects I have done to make my life easier, said Naruto smiling. Mei was startled by the sound of his voice. The smile on his face spoke volumes about him. It was like a mask. It showed a happy facade that hid a more dreadful truth. Enough about myself. It is nothing compared to the pain of the country you fight to liberate from a despot, said Naruto. Mei nodded as she told him of her history. I'm an orphan. My parents were killed during the earlier years of the bloodline wars, Mei explained. My entire family died that day, but I will not let their deaths be in vain. My parents died in a similar tragedy. I'm sure you have heard of the Kyuubi and its attack on our village. I had been kept in the dark, but it turns out my father died sealing the Kyuubi into me and my mother died during childbirth, said Naruto as he gazed into the horizon. I'm sorry. Don't be. I am probably worse of knowing, since my father is the famous Yellow Flash. Mei's eyes opened. The fourth Hokage had annihilated an entire platoon of ninja with a single jutsu. He was the only person in the bingo books with an SS rank in the order to run on sight. They soon neared the rebel camps and Mei waved to the sentry who let them pass. Taiko, you have returned, said a Junin. Yes, and Konoha has lent us their best. Meet Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, a Junin. The gathered ninja looked at Naruto either in awe or disbelief. I call BS on this kid. There's no way he is a Junin. The disbeliever was cured of his skepticism when Naruto appeared in front of him, his face in the Junin's. The seated Junin sweated bullets as a kunai was pointed at the organ that made him a man. Underestimation of any ninja leads to your own demise. The cold edge of Naruto's voice shocked the more experienced Junin. I've been through hell and back in the first 4 years of my life. Pray that you will never see the horrors of prejudice and hatred that I have experienced firsthand, said Naruto. He removed his kunai and the Junin breathed a sigh of relief as several Junin asked themselves what horrors the boy had been through. The main army is here and they have built a fortress outside of the village about 2 miles from the south entrance of Mist. It is filled with the rations of the main army. With a single swoop, we refill our own coffers and empty theirs. A hungry ninja is more likely to rebel, said Mei as she pointed the fortress's location on a map on the table she was standing at. Mei-san, how many ninja are stationed there? Asked a Junin. Approximately 250 give or take 50 ninja. Our spies have reported a group of support ninja have arrived there a week ago. It seems like we will be fighting uphill. This is a disadvantage. I have a plan to ambush the ninja that come downhill to attack us, said Naruto. All eyes turned focused on him. None of the ninja present had taken to account the fortress was on a hill. I can make a few dozen of seals that will release a volley of kunai or shuriken sealed inside it when motion from a single direction is detected within range. It will thin their numbers and make their platoon easier to take down. A group of injured shinobi is easier to kill than unscathed ones. Naruto pulled out the seal he was talking about. Projectiles ranging from Senbon to Fuma Shuriken can be seal here. Naruto pointed to the center of the seal, indicating the containment part of the seal. The sensor is programmed to unleash the sealed weapons in the direction that the sensor is aimed. Any foreign chakra that is not recognized will trigger the seal. He pulled out another seal. This is another seal that seals jutsu instead. Mei and her commanders looked at him in awe as he explained that jutsu of any element from any rank could be stored into the seal and the sensor triggered its release. Naruto, how many of those seals can you make in 6 hours? Ideally, the attack on the fortress will be in the morning. The sun will rise from behind us and serve to blind our enemies, said Mei. Depends on the quantity you want me to make. By myself I can make 24 seals in 6 hours. With shadow clones, I can mass produce enough of these seals to wipe out a good number of the shinobi in that bunker, said Naruto casually. I would like you to make several hundred of both seals. 200 to 300 each will be sufficient, said Mei. At dusk the Mei, Naruto, and the rebel shinobi woke to begin their assault on the stronghold. Mei looked at the sheer amount of seals Naruto had made. 400 of both seals and 800 in total were finished in 6 hours. Naruto had created some shadow clones and, while the darkness still covered their presence, had them spread the seals out. The top of the hill was filled with seals. The weapon seals were mixed in with the jutsu seals. The jutsu seals were mostly filled with Futen, Kaden, and Doden jutsu, but several seals were filled with Suiten jutsu. After the seals were laid, Mei waited until the sun began to rise behind them and gave Naruto the signal to acquire the attention of the enemy. The enemy ninja were woken from their beds when several smoke bombs found their way into their barracks. The gates of the fortress were unfastened and the heavy doors hit the sides of the fortress with a dull thud as its occupants flood through the doorway to the field. There at the bottom of the hill, boys. Let's get in range and kill. The Junin who was rallying his compatriots was suddenly killed by Naruto's clones. Shadow clones, shouted a random ninja. As they advanced on the booby-trapped ground, Naruto's clones dispelled. With a mass amount of chakra smoke blinding the rebels' enemies, Naruto grinned as he released the weapon seals. Confusion erupted among the enemy shinobi. The smoke had cleared, revealing large numbers of the mist ninja had been either killed on impact, mortally wounded and currently dying, or grievously wounded. Those who had not been affected shrank back from the front of the field, retreating onto the part of the field where the jutsu seals had been laid. Kai. The retreating shinobi were greeted with stream after stream of jutsu, further thinning the number of unscathed ninja that had come to attack them. A small number, around 50 to 60, had managed to pass the traps unharmed but were immediately cut down by the rebels. As the last of the seals ran out of chakra and turned into ash, Mei and her shinobi troops entered the stronghold. Its leader, a large shinobi, rippling with muscle, gathered the last of the troops for a last stand inside the fort. Naruto led the charge and unsealed his double-ended scythe staff and locked blades with the leader. Mei had cleared the way for her comrades, melting their enemies with lava. The rebels had subdued or killed the rest of the troops garrisoned inside. They gathered around to find Naruto still locked in a heated battle with the last shinobi guarding the fortress. The leader was an old veteran, if the long scar running across his face over his right eye gave any indication. I refuse to give in and I will fight to the death to protect Mist from bloodline scum like you. He shouted as he raised his zanbato and clashed blades with Naruto's scythe. Damn, he's serious, and even with the skills I learned, his experience in the battlefield exceeds mine, thought Naruto. I will have to release one resistance seal to outclass him. Retreating a few steps, Naruto quickly turned down the level of the main resistance seal on his chest from 50 to about 45. Redoubling his efforts, Naruto used his edge to scan for openings while dodging the large zanbato. He wears a thick layer of armor, but it seems like his calves are uncovered. Like they say, the taller your enemy is, the harder he or she falls. I have more experience than a wannabe Junin like you has. You are outclassed, Gaki, shouted the Junin. Oh, yeah, let's see you outclass this, Tem, said Naruto. He ducked under the large blade and created a clone behind the Junin, with whom he switched places. The Junin laughed at the move, shouting that he was only delaying his own doom, but suddenly fell to his knees. Blood spurted from two horizontal wounds on his calves, the skin was cut through as well as the muscle. White bone was visible through the critical injury the young Junin from Konoha had inflicted. I refuse to fall here. Sweden. Rotating razor funnel. A waterspout formed around Naruto as the column of water spun at high speeds. Naruto. No, shouted Mei as tears streamed down her face. No one has lived through this jutsu, Nani. The waterspout has come to a grinding halt as it began to turn into a column of wind. Naruto stopped the jutsu by stopping its motion, thought various Junin looking at the pillar of wind in awe. Futon. Shredding winds, shouted a voice from within the wind tornado. The spinning wind spun swifter as blades composed of pure wind flew from the tornado and began to revolve around the injured Junin. As the whirlwind dissipated from around Naruto, it grew around the Junin that had used a Suiden jutsu on him. Cries of pain arose from the center of the cyclone. The clear twister of wind began to turn red and soon filled with bits of flesh, muscle, and bone. The windstorm calmed down as suddenly as it started. Every Junin in sight turned green or gagged at the remains of Naruto's opponent. A bloody carcass lay surrounded by massive quantities of blood and bits of fleshy tissue and bone splinters. The body's limbs and torso were torn open by the wind jutsu, revealing bones tinted the color of blood. The man's skull, or what remained of it, was a hideous sight to gaze upon. The man's face was contorted in horror, the remaining flesh and muscle frozen in a look of terror. Half the skull was exposed, revealing an empty eye socket, with the remains of his eye resting in its destroyed socket. The other half had skin hanging from the bone, like tattered clothing. The other intact eye had a glassy look to it, staring blankly. The rebels looked at Naruto, who had taken a knee, breathing hard. Mei and several Junin rushed to his side when he collapsed in convulsions. He's in shock. Take him back to the base camp. Everyone else, raid the food stocks and bring anything of value back to the camp. Raise the place to the ground. Leave corpses for the vultures, shouted the Junin Mei had left in charge. Meanwhile, Naruto was treated for shock in a makeshift medic tent. Mei held Naruto's hand as the fledgling Junin from Konoha was given morphine to calm him. Naruto's convulsions halted and he began to breathe normally. I have given in a dose to keep him asleep. He'll be fine in a few hours, said the medic. Mei nodded as the medic snapped of the latex gloves and exited the tent. Mei smiled at his calm face and pressed her lips to his cheek and left quickly. Get well soon, Naruto-kun. Naruto found himself in his mindscape again. So Naruto, decided to visit me, or is this just a fluke? Asked Kyuubi as she put his head in her lap and caressed his whisker marks. That's right, boys and girls, the Kyuubi is a girl. Sorry for not coming more often. I've been busy. I've been working on cracking the seal so we can finally be together, said Naruto. I heard that the council has placed CRA on you, said Kyuubi. Are you mad about that? Not really. I just hope the women in your life will tolerate me, don't worry. I love you and that's what counts. Who you are in your past has nothing to do with the fact you are strong, beautiful and independent women who has needs as well, said Naruto, getting a giggle from Kyuubi. I suppose, but don't hurt yourself like you just did. You gave me a scare. I'm sorry, Q-chan. You're forgiven. Now get back out there. Remember, you will never be a demon. Hi. Naruto awoke in a dark tent. Wiping the sleep from his eyes, he got off of the cot he was laid on and ventured around the tent to pick up his equipment. After putting on his last article of clothing, he opened the tent flap and went to find Mei. He found her and her advisors in the main tent that was designated as the war room. We destroy 2 more citadels like the last one and we will have them running back to the city. Then we make our move, said a Junin. Naruto entered the tent and stood in the back, listening to the banter. One of the Junin looked up and saw Naruto in the tent and spoke to him. Naruto-san, you feeling better already? Come and join us. Mei and the others looked at Naruto, who was no longer pale or convulsing like he did before. Naruto, I'm glad you are feeling better. We were discussing our plans to attack other forts, said Mei. Naruto looked at the plans and shook his head. The opposition has seen what we can do. They have undoubtedly sent more ninja to fortify the numbers at the bastions. We should attack Mist while its ninja are off protecting its fortresses. I estimate that only 25% remains at the village to protect the Mizukage. We attack, rally those who are oppressed by the Mizukage and his regime. We can end the war now without more bloodshed, said Naruto. What makes you so sure that fact is so? Asked a Junin with an eye patch. I just received that information from a set of clones I sent that were hanged as a Kiri scout team. I killed and replaced a team about 2 minutes ago. I sent them false information that we were headed to attack both fortresses tomorrow. Thinking that our forces are weak because we plan to storm both fortresses, the village will send out more ninja to defend the garrison. The Junin all nodded in understanding. The Junin from Konoha was just a youngster but acted as if he had been through many wars. Are we agreed on this plan? Asked Mei and received a unanimous nod. Good. Tomorrow we strike and end this war at dawn. The next morning, like Naruto had predicted, the gates of Kiri were opened and extra ninja were sent to the garrisons, leaving the real village vulnerable. Naruto had clones place the same seals he had made at the 2 forts as a distraction. As soon as dawn struck, Mei and the rebel forces entered Kiri while the village was at its weakest. The ninja at the fortresses were too occupied with the minefield of seals that they could not respond and head home. Naruto, follow me. We will take on Yagura. Everyone else, free any prisoners and rally the troops. Keep the civilian death toll down. We need the villagers on our side, said Mei as her men shouted in affirmation. Mei and Naruto entered the Mizukage tower to find it suspiciously empty and found Yagura at the top of the tower, waiting for them. A magnificent strategy to leave me unguarded, but I am not in need of protection from no-name ninja like the 2 of you, said a sneering Yagura. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he looked at the Mizukage's eyes. Something was out of place but he did not know what. Mei, something is not right. You told me that Yagura was a peaceful ruler. His eyes suggest otherwise, whispered Naruto to Mei. It is a big mystery. No one knows what happened to incite such a change, whispered Mei in return. You 2 have made it this far but your journey ends here. Shouted Yagura as he blasted water jutsu toward his adversaries. Mei, keep him distracted while I ready a few seal tags, said Naruto. Yoden. Lava bed no jutsu. Mei opened her mouth as a stream of lava flowed out of her mouth and forced Yagura onto solid ground. Naruto and Mei followed him closely. Yagura spun his staff and tried to strike Naruto, but Mei encased the staff in a pillar of hardened lava. Your puny jutsu cannot hurt me, shouted Yagura as Mei encased him in lava. Almost there, replied Naruto. Hurry, replied Mei. Without warning, the lava encasing shattered as chakra began to surround him. 3 tails swung behind. He's gone into tailed beast mode. Mei, stay back, shouted Naruto. Naruto threw down 6 tags with seals on them around Yagura. Your attempts are futile. What is this? Raged Yagura as he saw chakra chains grab onto him and hold him firmly. Yagura, you were a peaceful ruler. Now you want bloodshed. I will end your injustice here and now. Fuiunjutsu. Seal of heaven and earth. Naruto hurled a kunai at Yagura with the seal wrapped around the handle. The kunai was reduced to metal shaving on contact with the chakra, but the seal stuck. Seal. The chakra around the Mizukage dissipated as he shrieked in agony. As the chakra chains dissolved, Yagura started to look around as he had never been in Kiri. Where am I? He asked in a shaky voice. Mei looked at him in surprise. You're in Mist Yagura. Where do you think you are? Asked Mei, glaring at him. I don't know. The last thing I remember seeing were red eyes with a black shuriken in the center, replied Yagura. The shuriken is used to hypnotize and can be used to command someone to do their bidding, said Naruto as Mei nodded. Yagura, you have caused the bloodline wars. What will you do now? Shouted Mei. You killed my parents and a good population of Kiri and set brother against brother. Yagura saw his men fighting the rebels and jumped down in the middle of the fighting. Stop. This is a mistake. Cease. I command you. Lay your arms down. I resign as your Mizukage as I am no longer fit for this job, said Yagura as he handed Mei the Mizukage hat. Mei gasped as the hat was given to her. Yagura, Mei, you have saved me from murdering our comrades. You have the qualities to lead. Take charge and heal this land, for I am no longer capable, said Yagura. Naruto leaned in to talk to Mei. He doesn't remember anything. Have his mind scanned and keep him close. I sense that someone is trying to frame your now former Mizukage. Watch him. They may be people trying to capture and use the power of your country's tailed beasts to destroy Kiri, whispered Naruto. 2 months later, Kiri had returned to normal. Naruto had used his clones to repair the city in a month with the help of ninja and civilians alike. Mei was chosen as the new Mizukage by the new council. She doubted Yagura but made him one of her bodyguards. Like they say, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Naruto was called to Mei's office by Yagura, who was dressed in a Junin outfit. So, Yagura, how's it feel to be a Junin? Asked Naruto as they traveled to the tower. Peaceful. There's no pressure or paperwork to overwhelm me. I thank you for your kindness. I would rather bear with constant surveillance than be alone and vulnerable. Jinchuriki live a harsh life, said Yagura. The former Mizukage had served out a month's sentence in the prison before he was scanned for any malevolence and reinstated as a Junin bodyguard. I know how you feel, Jinchuriki no Sanbi, said Naruto as Yagura's eyes widened though his face remained unchanged. I am a Jinchuriki myself. I am the Jinchuriki no Kyuubi and a Junin of Konoha. Even though Konoha hated me, I have thrived and achieved goals that I would never have dreamed of reaching. I am still working on becoming the Hokage, but it doesn't happen overnight, said Naruto, smiling at his fellow Jinchuriki. He leaned in and spoke softly into Yagura's ear. I do not know what forces loom in the dark, but look out for any Jinchuriki who may pass through Kiri. Jinchuriki live an ostracized life. Look out for your kin as I have done for you, said Naruto as they arrived at the tower. Naruto waved at Yagura and went inside. Naruto-san, people as kind as you are seldom in this world. Don't ever change, whispered Yagura into the air as he turned around and began to patrol the tower. Mei sat at her desk, which was overflowing with papers. Naruto smiled as he thought of the Sandaime Hokage, who had a look of defeat in his eyes when another pile of paper came into the office. Do this end somewhere, muttered Mei as she glared at the mountains of paper, as if they would combust under her stare. How's it feel to be Mizukage, Mei-chan? Asked Naruto as he closed the door behind him. Mei looked up and sighed in relief. Finally, I can take my eyes off this paperwork. How have you been, Naruto-kun? She asked. It's nice, except the paperwork can be frustrating, said Mei, setting down the paper she was looking at. It's time for me to return home, Mei. My mission is done, said Naruto seriously. Naruto-kun, you have to leave? Asked Mei. Over the last 2 months the two had gotten close. Now that he had to leave, reality had set in. Don't worry, Kiri and Konoha have a treaty now, right? We agreed on a treaty if the rebellion worked, said Naruto. Yeah, we do. I'll send the treaty back with you. Stay one more day. You can return tomorrow, said Mei, begging him to stay one more day. Alright, I'll send Sarutobi Gigi the news, said Naruto. Mei got up and went around her desk and pulled Naruto into a tender hug. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Naruto turned red as Mei planted a kiss on his cheek. Naruto grinned, planning to get her back for embarrassing him. I'm not a child like you think I am, Mei-chan. Naruto revealed his adult form to her and pulled her into an intimate embrace. Be careful, you may fall for me, he said teasing as he let her go. Mei sputtered unintelligible words before turning red and mumbling something about blondes. You know you love me, Mei-chan, said Naruto as he exited the room. I always get the last laugh. With that, Naruto left a flustered Mei who grabbed the nearest piece of paper which turned out to be a note from Naruto. Use Kage Bunshin. It makes the paperwork go faster. Naruto. Outside of the tower, everyone in range heard their Mizukage face plant on her desk. Mei grinned evilly as she added a stipulation in the treaty. Naruto-kun, you should know women never start a fight. They finish them, she said as she laughed evilly, scaring away her new secretary. Naruto was greeted with bows as he went about Kiri. Stores offered him merchandise for free and girls blushed when he smiled at them. Naruto got into his room and packed, hoping the Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze fan club had not caught wind of his departure. He had to hide his face when he went to the hot springs in Kiri because the springs were co-ed. What did I do to deserve this? He said into the ceiling. In Konoha, Sasuke sneezed. His fan club locked in on his location and he ran for his dear life. I'm going to kill whoever made me sneeze just now. The stoic, Uchiha ran from the mob of fan girls as a chibi Sasuke cried anime-style tears. Naruto had returned to Konoha with the treaty Mei had given him, unaware of the stipulations. Naruto had locked himself inside his estate, bent on cracking the seal that imprisoned the one girl that had loved through all the pain he had gone through. Apparently, the Kyuubi was a girl because her first two containers were women. She had cried when she saw the pain Naruto had gone through. Naruto and she had gotten close when she had helped him master his affinities, but the Hokage didn't need to know that. Regardless of the fact Sarutobi Hiruzen had given him his inheritance, he had hid the information from Naruto. As such, Naruto decided that he could have secrets as well. He had trouble mastering the scrolls his parents left him. His mother had left him several Suiten jutsu that had originated from Uzu. He had mastered one and made a Fuden variant, but two remained. His father had left him the Rasengan and the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, and he had only finished the Rasengan. He was still experimenting with inserting elemental chakra into the sphere. His army of clones worked on the 5 elements in the training grounds on his estate, at safe distances to not destroy his home. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu was impossible to start practicing until he had several of the kunai his father used. He was left only 2, not sufficient enough for him to use shadow clones to master said technique. Meanwhile, Anko had rung his doorbell, hoping to reach him. Naruto heard the chime and went into the foyer to open the door. Ah, Anko-chan, what can I do for you today? Naruto inquired. Anko grabbed the clueless Junin by the collar and kissed him on the lips, slipping him some tongue. I want a date today. Pick me up at 5 p.m. sharp at my place. I pick the place, said Anko, kissing him once more for good measure. Naruto could only nod as he watched Anko leave his estate, her hips swaying a bit more than usual. A date, a date. I need to get some fancy clothes or at least something presentable to wear. Naruto scrambled to get to the mall as the clock read 2:30 p.m. He ran into Ino, who he asked for some advice and told her of his date at 5. In the 1 hour, Ino had got him several outfits, casual and formal, that would make him look nice. Thanking Ino, he shunshined to his home where he put on one of the many formal outfit he bought with Ino's help. Checking the clock, which read 4:45 p.m., Naruto raced to Anko's place, and as the clock struck 5, he had arrived and rung her doorbell. My, you're looking good, Naruto, said Anko. Naruto looked at his date in awe. Anko had cleaned up nicely. Gone were the trench coat, fishnets, and lack of clothing. Anko wore a sensual red and black dress that had a slit up one leg, giving anyone a good look at her legs but left the rest to imagination. Her dress was not too low cut, but Naruto was sure Anko would give him a few good views of her cleavage. The pair headed to the Platinum Dragon, a high-end restaurant that was so good, seats had to be reserved a month or two ahead of schedule. Anko missed the hidden grin on Naruto's face as she walked with him to the restaurant. While they stood in line, the people around them quietly commented on the couple. Namikaze-sama is with the snake bitch of all girls, whispered a girl. I'm not surprised. The demon would choose to stay with its kind. The man, oblivious to Naruto looming over him, did not notice Naruto until too late. The Sandame's law is still valid, but I don't want to ruin Anko's date, he said as the man sweated profusely. Naruto grabbed him by the collar and tossed him into a dumpster. You should stay with your kind. Your mouth stinks like your discrimination. You'll get together well with the dumpster because both of you could use a bath. Anko kissed Naruto on the cheek as he returned to his spot in line next to her. You could have let my snakes eat him, Naruto-kun, she said. He's not worthy of your snakes though, Anko-chan. He probably tastes like shit, just like his opinions. Anko giggled at Naruto's joke as they made it to the front of the line. One table under Uzumaki Namikaze, said Naruto. The person behind the desk nodded as he called for someone to seat them. Ah, Naruto, how are you? Oh, I see you're on a date with a pretty one tonight. Follow me please, said an aging waiter. They were seated in a private booth and handed 2 menus. Anko looked at Naruto inquisitively as Naruto perused the menu. How does that waiter know you? Asked Anko. My parents dined here when the place was just a small restaurant. When they heard of me, they welcomed me in with open arms. The owner was friends with my mother, but since she has a hard time getting out due to her back, she was kept in the dark by employees that hated me. When she found out, she nearly skinned one of them with a butcher knife. Anko laughed until her sides ached. She tried to imagine an old woman running around with a butcher knife threatening one of her employees. She wiped her eyes and opened the menu just as the waiter came back in. So what will you and the miss have tonight? Naruto looked up from the menu. I'll have the sirloin steak with oyster sauce. Also bring us the best bottle of sake you have in stock, said Naruto. I'll have a bowl of sweet bean soup and side of dango, said Anko. When the waiter left with the menus and their order, Anko turned to Naruto. Why their best bottle of sake? Any bottle would do. Naruto smirked and leaned in close as if he were about to kiss her but stopped mere inches from her lips. That's a surprise, he said laughing as Anko pouted. The waiter brought the bottle of sake with 2 cups. Anko gasped at the brand of sake. Naruto bought one of the most famous brands in Konoha. The Golden Asp Sake Company was famous for their high-quality sake. A single bottle was around 1,000 ryo. Naruto uncorked the bottle and poured Anko a full cup before filling his. Kampai. The couple downed their cups and savored the sweet, slightly bitter taste. Anko listened to Naruto tell her about some of his travels in Kiri. Some Junin told me I wasn't capable of being a Junin. After he realized that his underestimation could have cost him the organ that designates that he was a male, he shut up. Anko burst out laughing as she banged her hand on the table in amusement. I'm giggle sure he cherished his manhood from that day on, haha. Naruto called for the bill, seeing that Anko was finished. The waiter handed Naruto the bill and he gave the waiter the exact amount before they got up and left. Holy shit, that meal was 250,000 ryo. Well, I guess it is technically a high-end restaurant, thought Anko. Naruto and Anko went for a walk through the park and he took her to the top of the Hokage monument where they watched the sun set. Anko, I want you to know I really enjoyed this date and I hope we can go on another, said Naruto as they walked to her apartment she shared with a friend. Naruto gave her a hug and turned to leave when Anko spun him around and smashed her lips to his before going into her apartment. Naruto stood there stunned before his mind rebooted and he headed home. Inside, Anko looked out of the window as she smiled at no one in particular. I hope so too, she said to no one in particular. Naruto's mind was spinning as he made his way home. So, what was that kiss about? Thought Naruto. As he reached the gates of his estate, An Anbu appeared next to him via Shunshin. The Hokage asks for your presence. Naruto nodded and sighed as he walked toward the Hokage tower. The Sandaime was frantically going through pile after pile of work, hoping it would end soon. Naruto stepped into his office and closed the door as Sarutobi looked up from the paper he had in his hands. Naruto, I went through the treaty and I want to make you aware of a stipulation that is required for the treaty to go through. Sarutobi handed him the scroll and pointed at one of the conditions. Provision number 5. There must be a political marriage between Mei Terumi, the Godime Mizukage, and Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Junin of Konoha. No one else will be acceptable. Naruto's eyes widened as he finished reading the scroll. He slumped into his chair and mumbled something incoherent. I told her that I always get the last laugh and she proves me wrong, he said grumbling. And the worst part is she made sure I had to agree. Tell her I agree. We'll do better with Kiri as our ally than as our enemy. Sarutobi nodded in understanding. Naruto, I have an A- rank mission for you. I want you to enter the academy, assume an alternate identity and attend the Ninja Academy for the next 4 years. The Civilian Council has lowered the quality of our ninja and I want you to attend to find the kinks in the shinobi program. Itachi Uchiha has also alerted me to the Uchiha clan's sudden secretiveness. I want you to also keep a close eye on the Uchiha Patriarch since the heir to the Uchiha clan is his younger son, who is currently attending the academy. Any changes in the Patriarch are to be reported to me. I have given you and Itachi the authority to kill him if he should continue down the path I think he is going down. Naruto nodded as he bowed to Sarutobi before leaving the office. Iruka glanced over the note once more before turning to speak to the class. Class, we have a new student. Please introduce yourself to the class, he said. Naruto wrote his name on the board and turned to face the class. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I am the same age as most of you. I hope to get along with all of you. Naruto took a seat next to Hinata and smiled in her direction. The poor girl's face turned a bright red and she passed out. Iruka sighed as he pulled out a small bottle of smelling salts and woke the girl. Now class, where were we? Asked Iruka. You were talking about the Nadaime Hokage and his ability to pull water from the air for his Suiden Jutsu, said a pink-haired girl. Thank you Sakura. The Nadaime Hokage. Naruto nodded off and fell asleep on his desk as Iruka droned on. Iruka turned to face the class after writing down some information on the board to find Naruto asleep, his head resting on the desk. A vein appeared in his forehead as he threw an eraser at Naruto. Naruto caught the eraser in his hand as he continued to sleep. Naruto, I expect you to pay attention, shouted Iruka. You said the Nadaime was the younger brother of the Shidaime and that he was famous for his Suiden Jutsu. You started to talk about the Sandaime and how he is called. The professor, due to his extensive knowledge of Jutsu, stated Naruto without lifting his head. Iruka looked at the new student in surprise. He looked like he was sleeping but in reality, he had heard every word. Okay. Then, moving on, the Yondaime was famous for his Flying Thunder God Jutsu. He is also the only person to date in the bingo book to ever been given the SS rank and a flee on sight order. The bell rang and Naruto dragged himself from his desk to his home where he threw himself into his Fuiunjutsu projects. Under the name Toruna Muzukai, he patented several seals. He had stumbled into the Higatashi's shinobi store by serendipity and was he glad he did. Not only did they jump on the offer, Naruto and Tenchi, the owner of the store, had decided to split the profits 75 to 25. They had been given the first batch as a present to celebrate their partnership. Tenchi's mouth dropped when Naruto presented him with several variants of the sealing scroll, exploding tag, and restraint seal. This included Naruto's distinctive seals he created, in addition to the jutsu seal and weapon seal he made in Kiri. The more prominent seals he crafted were the restraint-breaking seal that allowed a captured shinobi or kunoichi to free themselves, a UAL assault seal that protected both genders from being ally abused whether they were incapacitated or restrained, and the chakra pool seal, which collected excess chakra from its user and allowed them to tap the pool of chakra when their primary source was depleted. Many of the seals were a godsend for both shinobi and kunoichi alike. He began to work on the dead demon seal, hoping to find a way to crack the seal to release his tenant from the seal without killing both of them in the process. Naruto worked on decrypting the seal and going to the academy posing as a student as well as visiting Mei and Kiri during his breaks. The Hokage had given him Sannin traveling rights, stating that his life needed a female's touch. He had informed Mei of his clan status and the CRA that the council put on him. She had told him that as long as he loved her and all of his wives equally, she wouldn't have a problem with it. Mei and Naruto went on a date in Kiri and spent quality time together before he had to return to Konoha. While he was there, she introduced him to the surviving members of the Seven Swordsmen of Kiri, who had returned after Mei pardoned them and had the hunter ninja looking for them escort any members back to Kiri after giving them a scroll signed by her, pardoning them. So far only one of the Seven Swordsmen had returned while another member had remained loyal to Mei. Chojuro had sided with Mei in the Bloodline Wars, while Raiga returned with some persuasion. The other positions were filled with newer shinobi, wielding unique weapons that differed from their original counterparts. Naruto sparred with the Seven Swordsmen, picking up various tips on how to improve his kenjutsu style. Most of the swordsmen were astonished upon seeing Naruto's weapon of choice. It was a deadly choice. Its durability, ability to become two smaller weapons or one big weapon, and unique shape made it hard to combat in battle. Its scythe blades could carve out chunks of flesh while its spear points made it more difficult for close combat kenjutsu masters to combat. He had to eventually say his goodbyes, but he promised to visit again. He left for Konoha unaware that he had emotionally wounded one woman in Konoha unintentionally. Anko sat depressed in her room as Kurenai tried to console her. Naruto had gotten engaged in a political marriage with the Mizukage to finalize the alliance between Konoha and Kiri. She, however, was not informed of the CRA part. As she sat on her bed crying as she was being consoled by her roommate and friend, Kurenai made a mental note to create the worst possible genjutsu for Naruto, but then realized that she was out of his league. She decided to do it the old-fashioned way. When Naruto was walking past her and Anko's shared apartment, she followed him to his home before announcing her presence. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, you bastard. How could you break Anko's heart like that? Leading her on and dashing her hopes as you promise yourself to another woman, shouted Kurenai. Naruto looked at her and edged his head. I thought you knew about CRA that the council put on me. Never you mind. I have to marry a minimum of 7 girls before I become 21 or they pick the women I marry. I thought I made it clear I wanted another date from Anko, said Naruto as Kurenai's cheeks turned blood red. Well, you go tell her that because she's crying her eyes out, said Kurenai. Naruto's eyes expanded as he rushed to Anko's apartment and knocked. Anko opened the door and almost slammed the door on Naruto's face. Anko-chan, please calm down. I'm under CRA. I thought I had made it clear that I would like another date with you because I want to get to know you better, said Naruto pleading. Anko wiped her eyes as relief replaced her despair. Naruto, you could have told me, she said softly. Anko, I wasn't sure how I felt about you then, but now I know I need you in my life, said Naruto. He kissed her on the lips and pulled her into a hug. Anko Mitarashi, will you become my first wife? I know that I am engaged to marry another woman, but Anko's lips silenced him as he soon melted into the kiss. Yes, Naruto-kun, said Anko. Naruto left her apartment with the biggest smile on his face that continued to appear when he spaced out, freaking out his classmates. Naruto was smiling again as he put on his clothes and headed to the academy. Anko and he were keeping their relationship secret due to his assignment. He whistled a cheery tune as he walked to the academy and sat in his seat. Today, something worth to a shinobi or kunoichi under his or her belt was happening today. Class spars were happening. Naruto wondered who he'd be put up against. Some teacher's aide named Mizuki Bakamano assigned to help Iruka teach showed up. Iruka lectured about some forsaken topic for an hour or so before he motioned for the class to follow him outside to the sparring grounds. Naruto's eyes narrowed upon seeing the Uchiha clan present. Something big was going on and he just knew it. The Uchiha patriarch and his wife, Makoto, were there along with some old men. Naruto presumed that they were the Uchiha clan elders. Pairs were slowly called up to fight each other. Shikamaru and Choji refused to fight each other and were assigned other partners. Naruto watched in utter disgust as some of Sasuke's fan girls fought each other. It involved more of face scratching than fighting with a taijutsu. Besides, the academy taijutsu was pretty useless. His suspicion was confirmed when he was called up to fight Sasuke. The arrogant black-haired boy was pampered by both his clan and the village. Naruto had seen his skills before and wasn't impressed. The boy may have trained hard but he wasn't training to get better. Iruka stood to the side of the platform and recited the rules again before signaling them to get ready. No killing. The first one to fall is the loser. Fight. Naruto had added a variety of seals on weights he had bought at the Higatashi's store. Naruto had bought them before he enrolled into the academy and spent a month engraving seals into the weights to help hide his strength level. The current weight of the seals he wore on his limbs and torso all came out around 500 pounds. He also turned up his resistance seals to build up his strength and make sure he did not accidentally harm any of his classmates seriously in a spar. He inwardly growled. He was sure that the Uchiha clan was pushing their son to defeat him soundly in this spar. He would fight fairly though. If they tried anything, he would pulverize them. Sasuke flew towards him, his fist edged back to throw a punch at Naruto's stomach. Naruto sidestepped the charge and swept his opponent's leg from under him, causing Sasuke to lose balance and collapse face first into the platform. Sasuke stood up quickly, his face contorted in rage and embarrassment. Yelling, he dashed toward Naruto ready to bash his skull in. Once again, Naruto had not even tried to retaliate. Naruto grabbed Sasuke's overextended fist and stepped behind him, throwing Sasuke face first. Naruto placed a knee on the Uchiha's spine and twisted his hand to prevent him from getting up. Forfeit, said Naruto. Sasuke gritted his teeth and struggled but found he was trapped. I forfeit. The Uchiha clan head and the elders left immediately after Sasuke gave up. Seeing that his father had left in disgust, he tried to redeem himself by using a Kaden jutsu on Naruto. Kaden. Phoenix Fireball, shouted Sasuke. He watched with a smug smile while Iruka and Naruto's friends stood there helpless. You should never underestimate your opponents. It could kill you, said a voice inside the fireball. The fireball suddenly dissipated, revealing an unscathed Naruto. He grabbed the trembling Uchiha by the collar and pulled him to eye level. Attacking a loyal Konoha shinobi is treason and you could be executed on the spot. It would do you good to remember that. Naruto dropped Sasuke and walked back into the school as Iruka waved everyone else back in while Makoto nursed Sasuke. She looked in the direction Naruto had left in and silently asked Kami to forgive her arrogant son. She took Sasuke home and returned to find Naruto and apologize. She found him eating with the sons of the Choshi Ino trio, minus Ino, the son of the insect clan, and the heir of the Inuzuka clan. Naruto-san, I would like to apologize for my son. What he did was uncalled for, she said bowing to Naruto. Uchiha-san, you do not have to apologize. Your son just needs to learn he will not always win in a battle, said Naruto. He turned away from the Sasuke's mother as he finished his lunch. Makoto smiled at the boy. He was severely misunderstood but his was kind and gentle-hearted. Itachi stood before the Sandaime and gave his report. My father has become more unstable. I fear that he might try something soon, Hokage-sama, said Itachi. Sarutobi stroked his chin in thought. Itachi, I would like you to talk to Naruto. I have asked him to watch your brother. He told me that your parents, along with the elders, were there today watching the spar. Itachi's face became serious. I do not know what he is thinking. I await any orders from you. Itachi disappeared in a shunshin, leaving the sandaime to sit in his chair, lost in thought. Itachi went home and was pulled aside by his mother. Itachi-kun, your father wants to overthrow the Hokage and take over tonight, whispered Makoto frantically. His mother had helped secretly observe his father. Mother, I have a plan to stop the coup. I need you to follow my instructions. The Uchiha Patriarch, the elders, and a good part of the Uchiha clan wanted to have the village under their thumbs. However, a small minority opposed the idea, believing that they should remain faithful to the village. Itachi and this small bunch launched their plan an hour before the clan planned to start their coup. The Uchiha elders and Itachi's father were silently killed as well as those who supported the coup. Those who survived were killed on the spot. As the coup was quelled, Makoto and Sasuke were taking a walk in the park as part of Itachi's plan. Makoto would cover for her elder son while he wiped out the usurpers and cleaned up the mess. Dawn broke as Makoto carried her sleeping son home and headed to sleep herself. Itachi informed the sandaime of his actions and was reassured his decisiveness saved Konoha. Makoto came upon a strange scene once she put her younger son to bed. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was chatting in the living room with Itachi. Thank you for your help, Naruto-kun. It was nothing worth mentioning. You are a fellow Konoha ninja and it's only right for me to help you. Besides, the Hokage asked me to do it as a favor to him. What do you mean? The Hokage has known about Fugaku's plans to overthrow the Hokage in a quest for power. He just did not know when it would happen and asked me to watch his movements. I see. The means that led to this outcome do not matter now. It is done. I agree. I hope I will get along with you and the rest of the Uchiha clan. We are in your debt. You only have to ask and we shall do it if it is in our power to. Naruto nodded and shook Itachi's hand before he left the Uchiha compound. Mother, you can come out now, said Itachi. Makoto stepped out from behind the wall she was pressed against. You sensed me? She asked sheepishly. It matters not. I am sure you want some answers, Ka-chan. If possible, please tell me from the beginning and leave out no details. Flashback. 2 hours before the massacre began, Itachi had gathered those who opposed the coup and told him of his plan to purge the clan. The group was grim but agreed. Their fellow clan members had gone beyond the point of return. Suddenly Naruto turned up with his mechanical beasts following him. The Hokage told me of the plot. I came to offer my help to opposing Fugaku-san. The other members as well as Itachi raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to dirty your hands with blood of my clan? Asked Itachi. I have the blood of hundreds of Kiri loyalists on my hands. More blood will not make them any dirtier, Itachi-san. You are one of the Uchiha clan I respect. I do not want you to do something reckless without me, said a grinning Naruto. Itachi smiled and patted Naruto on the shoulder. All right Naruto-kun, I'll be counting on you to watch my back. The mechanical crab foamed at the mouth before it ced its pincers together. The dragon and scorpion swung their tails lazily as Naruto patted Itachi's arm. Get on. Naruto leapt on the dragon and Itachi followed suit. The other members climbed aboard other creations as they sped toward the Uchiha training ground where the traitorous Uchiha were gathered. The dragon roared before a stream of fire blasted the nearest traitors. Naruto unsealed his unique weapon and began to cut down the rebellious Uchiha led by Fugaku. Itachi leapt from the head of the dragon and landed near Fugaku. Father, you have crossed the line. I will protect the Uchiha name from being tainted by your greed, said Itachi as he engaged in a jutsu battle with his father. The crab and scorpion creatures sliced, cut and crushed their enemies as they kept the riders on their backs safe. An Uchiha blasted Naruto's dragon with a fire jutsu, thinking Naruto had been burned to a crisp. To his displeasure, Naruto and his creation came from the blaze unharmed. You are a fool. My beasts are covered with chakra-stealing seals. Die, said Naruto. The dragon's wings flapped and created a wind that fueled the stream of flame that erupted from its jaws. The offender and everyone within 10 feet of blast was wiped from the earth's surface. The crab and scorpion stood idle, keeping the turncoat Uchiha from aiding the clan elders who were embroiled in a battle with Naruto. The dragon blasted away any conspirators left from its first rounds. Boy, you would have joined us. Your skills would have been helpful, said the elders. Naruto said nothing in response. Instead, he maneuvered his way around one of the elders' guards and cleaved his body in half. The remaining 3 elders redoubled their strength. Naruto smirked with they tried to activate their Sharingan to predict his movements. Quote, Tisk, it's not that easy to foresee my movements, said Naruto as he continued to run the elders into the ground. They surrounded him in trying to attack from all sides. The Sharingan cannot foretell movements that it has never seen before, said Naruto grinning as the elders swore. Itachi had told him that Sharingan was not invincible and could not predict the movements of an enemy it had never studied before. Naruto blasted one of the elders away with a wind jutsu while encasing the other 2 in an earth jutsu. Naruto took off toward the elder he had blasted away earlier. The elder slowly got off the ground in time to block Naruto's thrust but was caught off guard when Naruto ducked under his strikes. Naruto had ducked under the man's fists and sliced the man's legs from his body. He leapt away, leaving the elder to die from blood loss and shock. The other 2 elders struggled in their bonds but when Naruto arrived, had broken from their restraints. You have angered the Uchiha clan elders. Prepare to die. Suddenly a giant shadow loomed over both. You have awoken a sleeping dragon. Naruto's mechanical dragon was resting nearby and had come to eliminate the enemy. Prepare to die. The dragon crushed an elder under one of its metal-clawed legs before seizing the other with its serrated jaws. The elder's screams were heard of the battlefield. The smoking bits of the last elder were expelled from the dragon's mouth as it lowered its head to Naruto's level. Naruto laughed quietly before he patted the dragon's head. Good job. A grunt from the direction of Itachi and Fugaku caught Naruto's attention. Itachi had impaled his father on the katana he had received as an anbu. Naruto sealed up his beasts before making his way to Itachi's position. Itachi wiped his blade clean on a scrap of cloth he tore from a corpse. I'm sorry for your loss, Itachi, but this was the right thing to do. Itachi nodded as he sheathed his sword. Naruto-kun, do you want to have some tea with me? End flashback. Makoto had sat quietly through the tale. Not once did she cry for the man who she had once called her husband. Their souls are at rest now. Hopefully, they will find redemption in the next life, she said. She turned to face Itachi once more. You said Naruto showed up to help you. So the Sandaime sent him to monitor Fugaku. Yes. What level would you place him at, Tachi-kun? Itachi's face shadowed over as his eyes looked at something distant. Ka-san, the day when Naruto snaps over the edge, whoever threatens his precious people will be wiped from the earth along with their conspirators. His Fuiunjutsu makes him irreplaceable. He fought the clan elders and slaughtered them. All the traitors that approached him with blades drawn were reduced to dust by his mechanical beasts. The Sandaime and Jiraiya still don't know how they work, said Itachi. Makoto's eyes widened as she thought of Naruto. As a child, he must have experienced traumatic events in his life. Naruto was a mysterious child. He had appeared several months ago from thin air. His abilities were too advanced for a student at the academy. Makoto shook thoughts of Naruto out of her mind as she went to bed. The next morning at the academy, Sasuke came in a little more sullen than usual. The news of the clan slaughter spread like wildfire. The Hokage released the news, stating a group of assassins targeted the Uchiha and wiped out most of them before Itachi and the survivors pushed them back. Sasuke's fan club surrounded him, trying to cheer him up. Surprisingly, to many of the students, Naruto went up to him and talked with him. By the end of the day, Sasuke was smiling. Sasuke remembered the words Naruto said to him as he walked home. Don't dwell in the past. Move forward and forge a new future for you and your clan. Don't stew in vengeance and death. Look forward and conquer your darkness and strive for life and kindness. Naruto smiled to himself. One Uchiha saved is better than none at all. Makoto tailed Naruto as he left the academy, bent on finding who he really was. Naruto felt a foreign chakra signature behind him and walked around the village to throw off his stalker. He went into an old apartment complex and went into a random room before using the shunshin to get to his compound. Makoto lost him and thought he had hanged himself into something in the apartment complex. She searched high and low, realizing she had been tricked. Naruto sighed in relief as he entered his home and quickly made his way inside. He was now more cautious in leaving, checking his surroundings for people who might follow him. He had developed a teleportation seal in response to his stalker. He had gotten Anko's permission and put it in her apartment. Anko was thrilled because now she and her fiancé could spend more time together without being so cautious. Naruto-kun, said Anko as he materialized from the seal. She pulled him into a tight hug as he hugged her back. The past few months had been crazy. The mission, the Uchiha coup he helped put down, research to free his third fiancé from his seal. He had forgotten Anko during the crazy months. He and Anko cuddled in her apartment while she listened to his stories about the academy. Anko laughed as he talked about the fangirls that crowded Sasuke and screamed his praise on top of their lungs. Don't you have a fangirl too? That girl Hinata has been seen following you around. Naruto's head dropped as he suppressed a shiver. The girl was nice, but she was pretty creepy also. Don't remind me, he said. Don't worry. I'll protect you from your fan club, said Anko, pressing his face to his chest. Naruto's hair stood up on end. I have a fan club. Anko giggled. You do. Ever since you patented those anti-rape seals, the kunoichi population has put your alter ego, Toruna Muzukai, has been hailed as a hero. And I kind of let it slip I was seeing their hero. Naruto paled as he visualized himself running from a crowd of smitten kunoichi screaming his name. Anko watched Naruto overanalyze the situation. She laughed as his face contorted into horror. Relax, Naruto-kun, they don't know who you really are though. Naruto put on a mock hurt face as he pretended to cry. You are so mean, Anko-chan. I won't tell you about a book I'm writing and you'll just have to wait. Anko perked up when he mentioned the word book. Come on Naruto-kun. I am sorry. Please tell me about it, begged Anko. Jiraiya had given Naruto a copy of his newest Ika Ika novel when he was in town. Naruto opened the book and handed it back, claiming he could write better. Jiraiya had challenged him to write a novel better than his. If he could not, he would proclaim in public that Jiraiya was the holiest of holy people for writing his smut. Naruto agreed and had been working on the book. His relationship with Anko had given him inspiration for the novel. Anko proofread his chapters and gave him advice. Anko's mouth watered as Naruto smiled in defeat and handed her the newest chapter. The gist of the story was based around a young man with horrendous scars that drove away maidens upon gazing upon him. Despite his unrequited love for a beautiful maiden from a rich family who was hounded by various suitors, he continued to protect her from harm. He killed all those who tried to harm the girl, despite the girl's rejection of his love. Anko cried as she read the new chapter. The young man had remained loyal to the maiden despite her coldness. She had sent her guards to beat him up for her pleasure and he stood still as the guards beat him to near death and spat on him. She continued to ignore the man until he saved her from an assassin who had been hired by a rival family to kill her to gain her riches. Anko grinned as she gave Naruto her opinion and watched him jot down her words as he put away the manuscript. He kissed he goodbye as he went home via the seal. 4 years later, Naruto woke up as his alarm rang and grumbled as he silenced it. He put on his clothes, ate a small breakfast, and then headed to take Genin exam. Sasuke smirked at him as he walked through the door. The two had become good friends and rivals. Hey Dobi, you escaped from your fan club already? He joked. Naruto grinned back. At least they don't know who I am. Your fan club follows you everywhere. Naruto smirked inwardly as he prepared to scare his friend. Oh, I think that's them running down the hall now. Sasuke paled as he made a beeline for the bathroom. Naruto sighed. His own fan club had been created upon the introduction of his book to Konoha bookstores. Jiraiya cried waterfall tears when Naruto's books outsold his first 3 volumes of smut. He reluctantly handed over the 20,000 ryo he bet Naruto. Jiraiya had said that he had to publish under his own name. Soon every kunoichi in Konoha had created a Naruto fan club that hounded him when he was in the streets. He took to using a henge to disguise himself as a girl to avoid them. He had been teased by Anko, who had been given the first copy by Naruto as a present. She had sicked the kunoichi on his position once for fun. Naruto shivered as his classmates looked at him weird. Sasuke had returned from the bathroom and sat next to Naruto. Naruto cleared his mind as Iruka passed out the written exam after explaining the rules. Naruto quickly finished the test and put his head down, waiting for everyone else to finish. Naruto woke up when Iruka yelled for everyone to go to the training grounds. Iruka explained that the accuracy part was made up of throwing shuriken and kunai. When Sasuke was called up, his fangirls screamed his praise. Smirking at his friend rival and threw the kunai and shuriken hitting dead center, scoring a perfect 10 out of 10 on both. Naruto yawned as he stepped up. He tossed shuriken and kunai so they hit vital parts on the dummy. In a real battle, those wounds were fatal. Iruka was impressed and gave him a perfect score and some bonus points. Show off, said Sasuke, rolling his eyes. The class was led back into the building. They stopped in the gymnasium to do the practical test. The class was told to graduate they must perform a kamawari, a henge, and the bunshin jutsu. Shino, Kiba, Shikamaru, and Choji all passed and were handed their hite 8. Sasuke of course passed with flying colors. Naruto, grinning, decided to be mischievous during the henge and hanged into a beautiful woman with smoke around her woman parts. Iruka, Mizuki, and a few students were blown back by massive nosebleeds. Iruka quickly recovered and screamed at Naruto for using a stupid henge. Naruto grinned as several clones appeared around him. Sasuke had created 7 but Naruto had trumped him, creating hundreds, filling the room to its capacity. The clones waved and made various faces. Sakura, one of Sasuke's fangirls, poked a clone. It is solid, said Sakura as Iruka's mouth dropped open along with his assistant. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu is a kinjutsu. He must have ridiculous amounts of chakra to produce that many. Iruka held out a hite 8 but Naruto pulled one from a seal in his belt. No one saw that but Naruto put a finger up to his mouth, silencing Iruka. Iruka snapped from his daze and finished testing everyone and congratulated those who passed. I will see you all back here next week on the same day, said Iruka. Everyone departed as Naruto remained behind. I'm sure you would like some answers. Iruka nodded and Naruto shunshin the two of them to the Hokage tower. The Sandaime was stamping some more papers when Iruka and Naruto stepped into his office. Ah, Naruto, you're here just in time. Sarutobi looked at Iruka, who was just as confused as the Sandaime. Naruto, why is Iruka here? I pulled out my hite 8 and he wanted some answers. I see. Iruka, please sit down and we will explain. The Sandaime told the Chunin teacher about Naruto's A-rank mission as an undercover student at the academy. So he was there to evaluate the curriculum? Asked Iruka. Yes, I have let the civilian council gain too much power and they had tampered with the academy. I asked Naruto to pose as a student and send me weekly reports on his findings. As Naruto stated in his reports, the curriculum was geared toward trivial subjects instead of focusing on teaching the students basic ninja skills, said the Sandaime. Iruka thought back to his history lectures and looked at Naruto before wincing. It's not your fault, Iruka. I will correct the discrepancy in the academy soon. Iruka nodded as another question came to mind. If Naruto was undercover, what rank is he really? Asked Iruka, eyeing the blonde. He is a Junin, of course. Iruka's eyes bulged as he turned to look at Naruto. Even Itachi was older than Naruto when he became a Junin. He was studying outside Konoha with my permission. Naruto beamed and turned to Iruka. I'm not called Fuiunjutsu no Kami for nothing. The Sandame sighed as Iruka looked at him for confirmation. He is actually called that in Kiri. He went there on a classified mission. Iruka exited the room, mumbling something about blondes. So find any students you want? Asked Sarutobi. Yeah, but I want to have an assistant. The Sandame nodded. I would like Anko Mitarashi, said Naruto. The Sandame sighed. She and Naruto were in a relationship and Anko came in weekly to pester him about Naruto. Alright, who do you want? Sakura, Ino and Hinata are my choices. I want to break their bad habits and make them into good kunoichi. Sarutobi couldn't argue with Naruto on the bad habit part. Alright, just don't break them. Naruto thanked the Sandame and left. Sarutobi went back to his paperwork, silently cursing it. Naruto poked his head back in. Use shadow clones. They will get the work done quicker. Sarutobi sat there stunned as Naruto exited. He was the professor and he could not come up with a solution. He made some shadow clones as he pulled out a familiar orange book. Damn you Jiraiya and your wonderful books. The next week, Naruto's classmates were wondering why he was absent. Iruka told them that he was with the Sandame. Alright, Iruka read the teams off. Well, with Naruto gone, the teams are a bit uneven. Team 7 was Sasuke, Sai, and Tai. Team 8 was Kiba, Shino and Haruka. Team 10 was Shikamaru, Choji, and Ayami. The most surprising to anyone was Team 11, which was Ino, Hinata, and Sakura. Ino and Sakura cried inwardly as they were not on their beloved Sasuke's team. Sasuke breathed a silent sigh of relief. Their sensei filed in to pick up them. Anko came through the window, a giant ball coming in after her. It unraveled into a banner which read, "The taken but still why Anko Mitarashi." Iruka slapped his forehead as he looked at Anko. You couldn't use the door like a normal person? He asked. If I did I wouldn't be unique, she quipped back. She turned to face the class and looked for Ino, Sakura, and Hinata. You three, come with me. Team 11 followed Anko out the door. Iruka silently prayed for their souls as a funeral bell rung off in his mind. Anko lead her kunoichi group to training ground 11 where they all saw a familiar face. Naruto. The girls shouted. Ino's eyes were caught on the Junin vest he wore. Hinata blushed as she looked at him. Sakura just simmered in silent anger. I got placed her instead of with Sasuke-kun. She shouted angrily in her mind. Naruto, why are you wearing a Junin vest? Asked Ino. I'm a Junin Ino. I was in the academy as a part of a classified mission for the Hokage. He thought back to his mission involving Mizuki right after he graduated. The idiot tried to steal the forbidden scroll. Naruto and the Sandame had laughed at him as he busted into the Hokage's office, which was suspiciously empty. He had reached for the scroll, or what he thought was the scroll. Naruto turned the lights on and Mizuki was carted away by some Anbu as Naruto and the Sandame laughed together. Naruto looked at his second fiancée, Anko. She had gotten to torture the poor sap. He turned back to his students and looked them over. 2 fangirls and an unconfident girl. My work is cut out for me. Alright, let's introduce ourselves. I'll go first. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I like Anko-chan, ramen, dango, training, and spending time with Anko-chan. I dislike traitors, perverts, rapists, bigots, and people who can't let go of the past. My hobbies aren't important. My dream is to become the Hokage, he said. Anko beamed at her fiancé. My name is Anko Mitarashi. I like Naru-kun, dango, spending time with him, and working in IT with Ibiki. I dislike perverts, a certain traitorous snake, and not spending time with Naru-kun. My hobby is training in the forest of death. My dream is to, you don't need to know. Ino and her teammates' sweat dropped. Anko pointed at Ino. My name is Ino Yamanaka. I like Sasuke-kun and flowers. I dislike forehead over here. My hobby is floral arrangement. My dream is become a psychiatrist and lead my clan. Naruto looked at her again. Well, she wasn't as bad as I thought she was. My name is Sakura Haruno. I like Sasuke-kun. I dislike Ino Pig. My hobbies giggle. My dream, giggle. Anko and Naruto rolled their eyes. This girl is a hardcore fangirl. This will be good. My name is Hinata Hyuga. I like F flowers and looks at Naruto and blushes. I dislike perverts, bigots, and those who put down the weak. My hobbies include archery, practicing my clan techniques, and pressing flowers. My dream is to banish the caged bird seal from use and combine the branch house and main house under one roof. Anko looked at the girl and turned to Naruto, who nodded. Single quote. Anko's got this girl. She needs a major confidence boost. She mentioned archery as a hobby. We could use that to boost her accuracy in battle. Alright, tomorrow we meet here at 8 a.m. You will be given a survival test. It will decide if you are cut out to be ninja, said Naruto as he told his pupil to go home. Anko and Naruto sat on stools at her favorite dango bar. Hinata needs a confidence boost. Ino just needs a push in the right direction. Sakura, she needs lots of work, said Naruto as he watched his fiancée down several sticks of dango. Don't worry, Naru-kun. I will break the fangirl tendencies, she said. Naruto waited until she had a piece of dango in her mouth and kissed. Their tongues swirled in each other's mouths. Naruto moved the piece of dango into his mouth and ended the kiss. Anko looked at him wide-eyed as he chewed it and stuck his tongue out at her. That's not fair, Naru-kun, she pouted. Anyway, just don't break her. Sarutobi Gigi told me not to break her. Her mother's won the civilian council and she is one screamer. She's like a harpy, said Naruto. Anko smirked in time her reply as Naruto was drinking his tea. She's probably a screamer in bed too. Her husband undoubtedly wears earplugs to bed, she slyly. Naruto's eyes enlarged as he coughed on his tea. He hit his chest with his fist to clear his throat and glared at his future wife. That was payback, Naru-kun, she said. He sighed as he and Anko made their way to his compound. He had asked her to move in with him after the Mizuki mission. She had remodeled her room to her liking and filled it with her personal items Naruto helped to carry over. She had moved her belongings into the room but didn't sleep there. She had convinced Naruto to let her sleep in his bed with him. Naruto gave in after seeing Anko pout. He just couldn't say no to that face. Naruto and Anko glared at the alarm clock that woke them. It read 7 o'clock a.m. Anko pouted, not wanting to let go of her cuddle buddy. Naruto whispered to her that if she got up, he would make her a nice breakfast the way she liked it. Anko quickly complied and a minute later was happily eating dango that Naruto made with a side of fruits and eggs. She sipped her tea contently. Naruto was perhaps the world's greatest cook. She had asked him once and he told her that he learned to cook while he lived alone in the estate so he wouldn't eat crappy food. Exactly at 8 a.m., she and Naruto arrived at the training ground where his team stood in wait. Okay team, you three must capture these 3 bells from Anko and I before the timer rings at noon. If you wish to succeed, you must come at us with the intent to kill. Begin. Naruto tied 2 bells to his belt and threw the last one to his fiancée who secured it on the sash she wore. Their team's strategy was pitiful, especially because Sakura charged head-on without a plan. Anko shook her head as Naruto dodged every attack with ease. Naruto sighed as he shunshined behind her and delivered a chop to her neck, rendering her unconscious. With that, Anko and he disappeared into the foliage of the area. Ino and Hinata came and grabbed their teammate's limp form. They hid themselves and awoke Sakura from her slumber. Did I get the bells? Asked a newly awake Sakura. Ino and Hinata shot her a look that made her put her head down. Ino, have an idea. The bells are part of a bigger scheme. If we work together we should be able to get them, said the pale-eyed Hyuga. Ino nodded and looked at Sakura for her answer. Well, if I couldn't get it by myself, we will have a better chance together, right? Anko and Naruto were in a tree kissing. Naruto had sent out a shadow clone to check on his students. He checked their surroundings often in search of a potential attack. Anko decided he was too tense and pulled him into a kiss. This is how their students found them. They gave their teachers a deadpan look as Anko broke the kiss and rubbed the back of her head. Their students attacked their teachers as a team, focusing on Naruto, who had two of the bells. Naruto had dodged all of Sakura's attacks but had not expected Hinata to appear behind him. She pressed a palm to his back as Ino pointed a blade to his neck. Hinata removed the bells and handed them to her teammates as the timer rang. They had not gotten the last bell. Anko's face lit up with a mischievous look. Since you did not get all the bells, you technically fail, but since the test was not focused on the bells, you all pass, said Anko, grinning at Naruto and her confused students. What Anko-chan was trying to say was that you passed by working together. As a team, you are your teammates' lifeline. You protect them and they protect you. There has never been just a one-man team ever before. That's why teamwork is important. Anko took over from that point. While Naruto is glad you all understand the meaning of teamwork, skills are necessary too. Sakura, while your chakra control is good, you lack skills to use it efficiently. Your taijutsu is pitiful as well as other aspects of your fighting. Ino, you lack power. You lack ninjutsu, taijutsu, and genjutsu other than your family's techniques. Hinata, while you are a good leader, you lack confidence and a variety in attacks. Over the next month, you three will be trained into the ground daily. Do you understand? Said Anko. The girls nodded as Naruto shooed them off. You have to be that harsh. It's for their good. Alright then, Anko-chan. When are you going to teach them about chakra control exercises? I want to be able to train them in basic kenjutsu. That's fine. Hopefully, they will be awake when they get to you. Just don't break them. The pink-haired girl's mother is a civilian council woman. Imagine Sakura's screech tenfold. Anko's face went white as a sheet and she nodded. This team needs a good training routine. Oh boy. Team 11 met at their training ground at 8. Anko was there with a large amount of kunai. Naruto had a giant scroll beside him, but the kunai were more intimidating. What are the kunai for? Asked Sakura. Anko grinned as Team 11's genin flinched. These kunai will help you gain faster reflexes. I suggest dodging now, said Anko. She began throwing kunai at Sakura, Ino, and Hinata. The three girls dodged to the best of their ability. Anko's diabolical laughs could be heard from the Hokage Tower, where Sarutobi's sweat dropped. I feel sorry for Naruto's students. An hour later, the three genin lay on the ground with multiple shallow cuts and bruises. I hope you all are warmed up. Chakra control exercises come next, said Anko in an amused tone. The girls slowly got up as Naruto slapped a piece of paper on their shoulders. They sighed and stood up straighter as their wounds were healed and chakra pools refilled. That should make them ready for you, Anko-chan. Anko kissed her fiancé and turned back to her charges. Naruto is going to demonstrate how to tree walk, so pay attention. I'll explain as he does it, said Anko. Naruto walked up the tree and back down as Anko explained how to channel chakra to their feet. Too little and you fall off. Too much will rocket you off. Oh, did I mention you will be doing this until your reserves are almost empty? Said Anko. 2 hours later, Sakura and her teammates were on the ground panting for air. Well, it looks like all of you have good control, but your reserves are too small. Every day for 2 hours, all three of you will be doing this exercise until your reserves are large enough to perform several high-ranked jutsu. You will be training with Naruto-kun in half an hour, so just rest for now, said Anko, smiling. She hopped into a tree and ate some dango she pulled from thin air. Naruto opened the scroll and released the contents. I want you all to try these weapons in your hands until you find one to your liking. When you do, you may keep it, said Naruto. Ino took a pair of butterfly swords. Sakura chose some gauntlets with studs on the knuckles. Hinata had chosen a strangely crafted bow staff. The three girls were worked into the ground, learning the skills they lacked. Ino learned how to properly use her butterfly swords and an arsenal of ninjutsu and genjutsu to complement her family's jutsu. Sakura was taught basic healing jutsu and a new taijutsu to work with her studded gloves. Hinata learned how to properly use her bow staff, and Anko created a hybrid taijutsu with Hinata's current one to give Hinata's form more fluidity and grace. The three genin learned kenjutsu from Naruto to use their new weapons more effectively. Every day they met, Anko trained their chakra pools, stamina, and speed. Naruto then taught them kenjutsu katas for their weapons, proper stances, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and began to teach them about elemental affinities. It turned out that Ino was attuned to lightning, Sakura to earth, and Hinata to water. Naruto cleverly devised seals that put on their equipment to train their strength.